Today, you're going to learn the only surefire way to increase your church's giving this year. And if you're skeptical of that statement, good, you should be. But here's the deal. There are certain elements of the church giving world that no one really talks about. So in this video, we're going to confront those issues and show you that there is a guaranteed way to increase your church's giving. And by the end of this video, you'll know precisely how.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you're going to get a dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift we've seen in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, Brady Shearer.
Alex, according to the most recent research we have from Lifeway that came out in March of 2019, almost half, 46% to be precise, of churches in America say that they have decreased or stagnated giving from 2017 to 2018. Knowing this, it's not a stretch to assume that very, very large majority of churches that exist want to increase their giving. And a lot of giving providers will make promises about increased giving if you sign up for their service or another. I've run a business now for 7 years. And if there's anything I've learned in this 3/4 of a decade, it's that it's much easier to decrease expenses than it is to increase revenue.
Sure.
If you're a church, it's much the same. It's a lot more difficult to increase giving than it is to decrease expenses because you've got a lot more control over expenses than you do giving. Now, that isn't to say that we shouldn't care about increasing giving, but I think that looking at your expenses and decreasing them is a much better option. And it's really the only guaranteed or surefire option.
Yeah.
Now, you might be hearing that and thinking, well, Brady, we're not going to get a new location to meet the church in.
Yeah, we're not asking you to fire your pastor.
Not about to fire my youth pastor. I kind of like him or her.
Yeah.
What can be done? Well, there is a way to increase your church's yearly budget from anywhere between 2 and 5%, and that is to confront and reclaim the money you're losing due to giving fees digitally. We are going to do some quick maths.
Quick maths.
It's not so quick. There's going to be a lot of numbers.
It's going to be a lot of math.
We want you to stick with us. So what amount of giving in an average church is digital giving? Because if someone's giving through check or cash, you're not losing any of that gift due to giving fees. But anytime someone gives digitally to your church using a debit or credit card, which we know is the most preferred option,
almost 50%
by far in churches and amongst Christians, what can we do to limit those fees? Well, first, what percentage of people are giving digitally? According to Nonprofit Source, 49% of all church giving transactions are now made with a card. And the important thing to recognize is that number is only going to go up.
Yeah.
Right? This is the beginning of a trend. Less people are carrying cash. Less people own checkbooks.
Yeah.
I would be
What's
in
a
the
checkbook?
group that owns neither and carries neither. So that number, half of all transactions are already with a card. So half of the amount being given to your church on average is already with a card.
Yeah.
So you're losing about a bunch of fees there. Now, what is the average person giving in a church?
Okay.
We've got two different numbers because we wanted to get, a couple different sources here. According to Nonprofit Source, the average giving by adults who attend U.S. Protestant churches is about $17 each week. And that doesn't mean that every single person gives $17.
Right.
But in the aggregate, weekly, you can expect about $17 from each adult. Tom Rayner has a bit of a different number. He calls it his weekly per capita giving number in an American church. This actually includes kids.
Right.
And it's about $26.
Okay.
So we've got on the low end, $17, that's adults only. On the high end, $26 per person per week, and that includes kids. So we used an average of about $21.50.
Right in the middle.
Exactly. And then finally, we've got to consider the fee cost. On average, with all the full-service church giving providers, it's about 2.75%, which is the percentage fee. And then on top of that, you also have to consider the per-gift fee.
Of course.
Anywhere between 29 and 39 cents. We just said, let's make it 30 cents on average.
Yep.
And when it comes to how many people are giving each week, we know that tithers account for about 25% of the congregation, so we use that number to account for the gift fees. A lot of math, a lot of numbers, and let me also just say, this is why calculating these things is so hard and why no one tries. And we just go, hey, we're losing money to fees. It's better than doing all the math.
Yeah.
We did the math for you, and here's what we've got. Based on weekend attendance on average, this is what you are likely losing in fees. You might be lower, you might be higher, but these are the averages. If you're a church of less than 50 people, you're losing about $866 each year to digital giving fees. If you're a church of 100 people, that doubles to about $1,700. If you're a church of 200, around $3,500. If you're a church of 500 people, about $8,600 lost every single year due to digital giving fees. If you're a church of 1,000 people, it goes all the way up to more than $17,000 a year. Double that if you're a church of 2,000, around $35,000 each year lost to giving fees. And if you're a church of 5,000 people or more, you're approaching and surpassing $100,000 lost each year due to giving fees. And this doesn't even account for monthly fees that you pay your giving provider, any extra fees they add, which some
just
do,
the transaction
security fees, compliance fees, cancellation fees, technology fees, paper fees. Why are we paying paper fees? Hey, don't worry, it's just a fee.
It's just in there. You just got to pay it.
And if you think about this money, and math can be dry, right? Math can just be a little bit boring, But when you think about what that money could mean, that could mean replacing the floor in the kids' classroom. It could mean adopting a new missionary.
For some churches, it could be the difference between hiring a new staff member. You want to hire that youth pastor, that kids pastor to take your kids ministry to the next level, but it just doesn't quite fit the budget. So you use volunteers who are burnt out. This could be the difference between hiring a kids pastor at your church.
It could be the difference between being able to afford that new location. It's, we want to rent that spot, but you can't because, you don't have that extra, couple $1,000 every single year. When you think about what that money can do and how it's being needlessly lost to giving fees, it becomes a lot more tangible. Now, what can be done? Basically, there are 3 things that you can do. And if you're thinking, hey, this isn't me right now, again, remember, eventually, whether you have not yet, dived into the digital giving space
that's our
your church. That's Alex's church right now. And Alex knows this because we talk about it. He's going to have to dive in eventually.
Next month, we're diving into digital giving because we're looking at these numbers and saying, okay, this is how people want to be giving at our church. And people would probably be likely to give more, or at least more often or more consistent if they had that opportunity. And so we have to make that move. We have to make it available for people. And that's why we're taking the plunge. And these numbers here, although like you said, math could be a little bit dry, this is imperative to us when we're choosing a giving provider. How are we going to minimize these fees?
Right, because that the second you offer digital giving, a huge group of people in your church are going to be like, finally, I don't have to take out cash each week. I'll just give digitally. But guess what? They're going to keep giving the same amount, which means suddenly you get 3% less.
Exactly, yeah.
And that can be drastically problematic for many churches. So here are 3 things that you can do. First, get your donors to cover the fees. There's a donation platform for nonprofits called Classy, and they found that when the cover the fees option was pre-selected, anywhere between 75 and 85% of givers voluntarily chose to cover the fees.
Just left it selected.
You leave it pre-selected, I'm fine with that. And then the vast majority of givers were like, yeah, we're totally fine with covering it. It's a really small fee. Usually if you're giving $100, maybe it's, $103 now. And then the second thing that's important to do is to educate your donors on these fees. In my experience, again, donors are excited to partner with your church because they don't want their gift to be lost. They want you to get all of it.
They're giving to you for a reason. They believe in what you're doing and what you're going to do with that money. And so they want you to have all of it.
Thing is, they don't often know that 3% of it is getting lost to fees. And so if you educate them, be like, look, we know you want to give digitally. We know it's more convenient for you. All we're asking for is if you're going to do that, just cover that small fee because it's not much to you. But in the aggregate, if none of you do it, it's huge for us. We're talking about 3 to 5% of our yearly budget. And every organization has to confront this in some way. Like if you're a business like us, if you're a corner store, like that everyone wants to pay for things digitally, which means that 3% of every purchase is going to get lost on average to fees. So we account for that when we're pricing our products. But if you're a church, you can't account for that. You can't raise the donation level because people are just giving freely. So churches and nonprofits get really screwed in this area. And that's why asking donors to cover the fees can be so helpful. And then finally, you can just work to negotiate a lower fee structure. Ask your church giving provider, what if we paid a higher monthly premium, that fixed cost, but you gave us a lower fee rate? Ask about volume pricing. And if they're not willing to budge, or if there's a better option, consider a different giving provider altogether, one that really cares about fees. We found with a lot of church giving providers, fees are where they make a ton of their money, all of their money. And so they're going to really push like text giving and app giving and promises for increased giving. But again, the only surefire way that we've found to increase giving is to not lose giving off the top of every single gift. Don't be distracted, especially because we know that not many people prefer to give via text or app. 50 times more people prefer to give with debit or credit card compared to text giving. So don't fall for those type of persuasion sort of things. Focus on the fees, and you can work to increase your giving using the only guaranteed way to do it. And that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time. Subscribe!